Hey everyone, Thomas from fieldtennis.net here, and today I want to talk about the drop in the serve, which is the drop behind your back. I've recently received a few emails and actually videos from recreational tennis players that sent me their video of their serve, and they realized that their drop is not as deep as Roger Federer's or Djokovic's. And sometimes I've done the video analysis for them, and they also realized that their racket does not drop as deep as it drops when a pro serves. So today I want to show you the main reasons why that happens and some exercises how to correct that.
Here are two quick examples of shallow drops of recreational players compared to the pro. So this is Jack's serve. Jack has come a long way since this one. And this is Jerry. So here's another comparison. I just flipped Djokovic, so you can compare the difference in the drop.
So before we talk about the solutions on how to correct the, let's say, a shallow drop, let me first demonstrate two serves so that we can compare a serve with a good drop and a serve that doesn't have a good drop. So here's one with a good drop. And here's one serve where the drop is not that good. As you probably noticed, one of these serves, the first serve is very loose and fluid, and the second serve is very tight. So we can just simply say, okay, try and make your serve very loose and make your arm very loose, but that usually doesn't help, because there are deeper reasons for why the shallow drop happens. So when we want to solve this problem, we have to address it from two ways, and I like to address it from, let's say, pure mechanics. So let's try and fix the movement, and also from the mental side, because you might have the incorrect interpretation of how the serve works, and you might be thinking too much about force rather than speed. So let's start first with the mechanics part and how we can work on developing a more loose and fluid movement with a deeper drop. So in order to achieve a good drop in the serve, we first need to feel how a good drop feels. So what I like to use is the ball on the string. So it's just a ball with a hole, and I put the string through it. And you can use this ball to swing it around your body like this, where you simulate the serve movement. So the purpose of this drill is that you feel how the drop feels. So you can relax here completely, and because there's no collision for you waiting, there's no collision, you can actually feel how it feels to move your arm very fluidly and very smoothly through your service motion. So this is one of the basic service motions that you should be very comfortable with. If you're not, you need to practice it. That is one of the first things I do, let's say with kids or with beginners. If I want to teach them the serve, I teach them how to do this movement. So while they might struggle for a few minutes or maybe one day, then eventually, sooner or later, they will figure it out. So you can do this in two ways. You can follow through on the right side, so you just let go, or you can follow through on the left side and make one circle. So this is one of the keys to developing a good serve, which is this fluid, smooth movement and actually really feeling the drop. What's good here is that you don't have a tight connection to the ball, so it's not like a stick, it's very loose, so you have to feel how the ball goes. And when you don't do the movement correctly, let's say you do like this, then the ball hits you and you learn very quickly. So very useful tool that is going to teach you the service motion without any verbal instruction. Another extremely useful tool is the Total Serve, or the Serve Master, created by Lisa Dodson, so kudos to Lisa for this. Of course, this is a more professional version of what I've created, and the Serve Master works the same way, so you can just swing it like this, but it has two very good benefits, or two advantages over my invention, which is it's heavier, so it pulls you more, and this rubber part stretches. So when you accelerate a little bit more, you can actually feel how it pulls you. and that is the right feel to have on the serve, because you want to feel that your racket is released and that it's pulling your arm rather than you holding the racket very tight and pushing and hitting the ball strong or forceful. So very good investment. I highly recommend the Serve Master. Another advantage of the Serve Master is also that it has a grip, so you can actually hold it in a continental grip, and that also teaches you, perhaps even subconsciously, how to do the serve. So exercises like this are actually gonna create a drop automatically for you and start a new muscle memory program for you to develop a good, very loose, very fluid movement, and with a good drop that will usually it will just happen without any special mechanics or any special tricks. If you just let the weight guide you a little bit, and if you practice this for a while, you'll become very comfortable doing this, and that is the key to achieving a good drop, because feeling very comfortable allows your arm to relax and drop behind your back. So the next stage in working on developing a good drop is performing these exercises that you did with the ball on the string or with the Serve Master, or you do it with your racket. I recommend that you hold the racket with just 3 fingers or maybe 4 fingers, so that you cannot control the racket that much, and just try and feel its weight. So try and imagine that your arm is now the string and that the racket head is the weight at the end of this string, and you want to perform these same movements without the ball. So again, you can do the follow through on the right side and just continue like this, and also follow through on the left side. So I will show you also from this angle. So if you really completely let go and loosen up, you will see that the racket drops quite low. Maybe just a little mention that you also need to be somewhat flexible in your shoulders. I have experienced a few times in my coaching career that I've coached adult players that were not very flexible in their shoulders, so that actually prevented them from a good drop. So that might also be a problem. So you need to be quite flexible here in your shoulder to allow the arm to go back that much and achieve a good drop. The next progression I recommend is to perform this service motion without the ball. So you've been doing this continuous loop, and you want to feel how it goes without the ball. So once you feel, you try to serve one ball very slowly and see if you get the same feel. What you will realize most likely is that you will serve slightly differently when the ball is in the air than when there's no ball. So this is where you have to come together. This is where you have to work on, because it's going to bother you. You're going to be a little bit frustrated. How come I can do a proper serve without the ball, and yet when the ball is up, I change my serve? So just stick with it, practice 5 minutes every day, and eventually it's going to come together. So it's not a very like a solution that's going to happen in 10 seconds. Sometimes it takes a while to change your muscle memory and to change your interpretation of the serve. So again, do 1 or 2 serves without the ball. Just try and feel that the racket drops very deep, and then just progress into a serve. So you can also do without stopping. So you just do 1 serve, and as you can see, my racket doesn't stop, and I just continue into a serve. Very important that you serve slow. So when you want to serve fast, you're going to contract your muscles, and when you contract your muscles, they're going to block your racket from dropping. So it's very important that you first acquire at least a slow serve that is correct, so that has a good drop. You cannot jump classes like in school, so you cannot develop a good fast serve if you cannot serve properly very slowly. So like you were driving a car, first you have to drive a car to learn to drive a car very slowly, and then eventually we will progress. So again, you have to go through the steps. You have to learn how does it feel to serve very slowly. And one problem that you may encounter is that when you want to serve very slowly, you will have a problem with the timing of the ball. And I encourage you to stick with it and figure it out, because it's going to help you with becoming much more aware of what's going on with your serve. Because when you will toss and you will do a movement very slowly, you will feel that the ball is dropping down very quickly. Then you might hit the ball here. So you have to figure it out. What you need to do is you just need to go out of your drop just immediately. Do not hurry. You don't have to hurry. You have to toss the ball fairly high enough, but you can perform the serve very slowly without any rush. And when you feel that, you'll be ready for the next step. So just before the next step, I just want to demonstrate a few very slow serves. These are very important for developing proper tennis technique. So a slow serve, very slow serve, for me it's the slowest serve that I can make. So what is the slowest movement of the racket that I can make? And what I also want to point out here is that when you're serving, try not to lead with your elbow or with your triceps, but just try and tap the ball, almost as if you're a beginner and you're tapping the ball like this, but now tap it with your continental grip. So when you come to the ball, just come under the ball and then tap it so that the racket head is going to overtake your arm. So it must not be your arm that's leading. You must come to the ball and then the racket must go faster than your arm, so the tip of the racket is leading. So when I'm serving like this, I just want to get under the ball and then the tip of the racket goes faster and I'm still just tapping. So I want to feel very loose. I want to feel exactly the same as I was feeling with the total serve or with the ball on the string. It's very loose and I'm just tapping the ball. So again, this is the foundation of a good serve. If you ask any pro to do this serve, they will be able to do it. So this is something that's hidden beneath a really good, a really fast serve, is the ability to serve with a very loose arm and very slowly. There's one more exercise I want to show you, and I call it the dangling serve. And what you need to do is you need to let the racket dangle behind you. Now it's very important that you do this properly, because there's another teaching system that teaches, let's say, serve from here, but the racket does not dangle. People are taught to scratch the back or push the racket in their back, and then they serve from here. So that's not how I want you to serve. I want you to feel that the racket is dangling, so it has to move, right? So it must not be still like this. You must feel that the racket is moving and that you're barely holding the racket. So that's how you just feel a good drop. This is a good drop for you. So you feel, okay, this is how a good drop feels. And again, I'm just rocking the racket a little bit. I feel it. I can move the racket around a little bit and it's dangling behind me. So now I want to go from this dangling movement, I want to pull the racket out. So I don't want to push it forcefully into the ball. I just want to feel, how does it feel when the racket is behind me and I pull it like I want to throw it. So it feels like this. The racket is dangling behind me and I'm going to throw it now with a very loose arm. So that is one part of the serve that helps you feel this key movement where you pull the racket out of the drop. So then try with the ball, just dangle the racket and see if you can throw the racket in the ball. So here's one more. So I'm just throwing the racket in the ball. I don't want you to tense up at the moment of contact. That is also a very common problem where you're expecting a collision and you tense up, you think there's something going to happen there. But nothing's going to happen because the ball weighs 60 grams and you weigh 60 kilograms or more. So you weigh probably 1,000 times more than a tennis ball. So there's no collision, there's no competition. You just swing through the ball like it's nothing. And that's how you will get rid of that tension in the contact point. Besides the purely mechanical reasons for not having a good drop, which means you don't have correct technique, there are also mental reasons. And the main mental reason for not having a good drop is the desire for control. So in order to develop a fluid serve that has a good drop, you will have to let go. Letting go is exactly the opposite from controlling something. So when I want to control the serve, I imagine that I will steer the ball with the racket face into the target. So when I imagine that, I will create tension unknowingly because I will want to control the racket head's angle and the racket head path. So I will try and steer the ball inside the court. So now I exaggerated a little bit. So when I put that into my serve, so even though I'm trying to do the serve technically correctly, as long as I have this desire to control the ball in the court and to steer the ball in the court or to push the ball in the court, the drop will not happen because I will tense up my forearm too early and I'm going to try and hit the ball in the court forcefully. So unless you change your approach, your mental approach to the serve, the drop will not happen. A fluid serve that has a good drop actually means that you're not attached to the outcome. It means that you're letting go. So as I said, letting go is exactly the opposite from control. So when you serve, you're not attached to the outcome, meaning I'm not really forcing the ball to go in the court. I'm going to do my serve and then I will let the ball go wherever the ball goes. So that looks something like this. I'm just swinging through the ball and I'm letting the ball go where it goes, and now I see where the ball goes. And what's very important is that I retain the same feel of letting go, but in my mind I'm trying to bring the ball down a little bit. So something like this. So I'm just adjusting in my mind. I see where the ball goes, I'm adjusting, and I'm swinging freely. It's very important that I'm swinging freely, not that I'm trying to really steer the ball in, that I do it. I must allow this to happen. And then you will ask me, well, how can I make this happen? And unfortunately, the answer is with a lot of practice. If you do not have a lot of practice, you will actually have to steer the ball in, and I know how that feels. So you will need a certain amount of practice, a certain amount of serves, so that you will trust your serve, so that you will let go, and that you will think or believe that the ball will go in. So you cannot put every ball in the court, and that doesn't even happen on the Pro Tour. So it's very important that you accept that a certain percentage of the balls, especially on the first serve, will go out. And when you accept that and you let go, you will realize that actually more balls go in. The question you might also ask is, how do I put a second serve in? Again, you're trying with the topspin serve and you're trying to let go as much as possible and see where the ball goes and then adjust, rather than you actually trying to steer the ball in the court, because you're going to break that fluid movement and you're going to break the serve technique. You will not have the drop. When you don't have the drop, you will have less path to accelerate, and of course you will lose speed. So it's all going to accumulate. So very important that you keep swinging, letting go, and then the drop will happen and you will feel that you can serve with good power quite effortlessly. So there's another mental aspect that you must be aware of that might be causing a short or very shallow drop. And that is when we do a shallow drop, so when the racket just goes up to here and then goes to the ball, you have a very short distance from the racket to the ball, and that gives you the feeling of control. You're quite certain, okay, I'm going to hit the ball because it's such a short distance. So from here to here, you have very good control. You feel I'm in control. The racket is going to hit the ball for certain. And when we do the drop and actually let the racket swing around our body, the racket will end up in this position at some point, or actually it's going to swing through this position. And that's quite far from the ball, and that might bother you. You will feel I have no control. And whenever you're trying these exercises that I'm suggesting and you feel, oh, I have no control, then you're on the right track actually. Because you have to learn to serve with the feeling that you have no control, and eventually through practice you will realize that actually you do have control of the ball, a fairly good control. So again, when you're going deep in the drop and the ball is there quite far, you can see that the distance is quite long, and again that's more difficult for your brain to calculate. It's very easy for the brain to calculate how to make a contact when the distance is short. And when the distance is long, you will struggle with that. So you have to struggle with that for a while. Trust me, your brain will adjust with repetition. It will adjust. You will be able to hit the ball. So just allow the racket to drop. Allow the racket to drop and throw it through the ball, and you will be surprised at how many balls you hit really well. The last mental cause for a shallow drop in the serve is your mental image. So you might have incorrect mental image, or let's say it's very simplified mental image. So what you're thinking is, here's the ball, there's the target, so the target is down, the ball is up here. So when I serve, I have to get above the ball, behind the ball, and then steer it in the target. So you're thinking very linear, you're thinking like this. That's how I put the ball there. I put the racket behind the ball and I'm going to steer it there. So when you do a serve like that, you're just thinking, okay, I have to bring the racket somewhere here, because from here the racket points in the target and the ball has to be in between, and then from here I'm going to serve the ball in. So then you might also perform some movements in the so-called serve technique. So you're performing the movements, but in the end your mental image wins. So you just want to bring your racket behind the ball and then push it down. So it's not just a technical problem, it's not a technical cause, it's your mental interpretation of the serve. And I know it sounds very logical, but that's not how the serve works. The serve works in a more circular manner. So you're not thinking that linear, you're thinking, how do I accelerate my racket in a circular motion like this? So how do I accelerate the racket in a very fast circular motion? And while my racket is going through this circular motion, at some point it's going to hit the ball and the ball is going to fly off. And with the circular motion we create much more speed than we do with the linear motion. The correct mental image for the serve is more circular, so with the circular motion we can create much more speed than with the linear motion. So the proper mental image you must have in mind is that you want to create a lot of circular movement or angular momentum. So when you create this momentum and you hit the ball is just going to fly off somewhere. So again, your question will be, well, how can I control the ball? Because when I'm swinging like this, the racket changes its angle all the time. Yes, we're back to control. So there is a way to learn that. And there is no way to learn a flat serve that always goes in the court. So there's no way to learn that, and no one can do it. So you have to keep that in mind, that even the pros, they cannot serve flat when the racket is just accelerating like this. They cannot serve in the court, so you cannot serve in the court. So very important to accept there's a certain percentage of missed serves when you're hitting a first serve. And on the second serve it's very similar, except when you impart topspin, the ball will have more height and more curve and it actually goes in the court much more. But we're applying the same principle. We want to accelerate the racket in a more circular manner. So when I'm thinking about a circular manner, I want to create more speed of the racket. So as you can see, I want to get here so that I can create more speed. So now the drop makes sense. When you're thinking in a straight line, the drop doesn't make sense. Why would I go here to complicate things so that I steer the ball? So I'm just explaining this here so that you can see like the mental image you have in your mind. So when I'm serving the ball and I'm thinking I want to create a lot of angular momentum, then the drop makes sense. I want to drop the racket really low so that up here I can accelerate in a circular manner so that I create more speed of the racket. So it goes something like this. So I put the racket here. So now I want to create a lot of angular momentum. So then I release that on the serve, and now I feel how the drop really makes sense. So I'm just simplifying the serve a little bit so that you see why the drop happens in this case and why the drop doesn't happen when you're thinking very linearly. So again, you have to combine these things. So the mental image is very important, that you're thinking more circular and that you let go so that you're not controlled by control, and then the drop will eventually start to happen in your serve. So in the end, I just want to give you a quick suggestion on how to practice. You can use these exercises for about 10 to 20 minutes. So very important that you swing the ball on the string or the total serve or just the racket for a couple of minutes. That puts you in the right direction. And then you can work on these things. You can think about the mental image, you can think about letting go, work on a very slow serves, and do that for about 10 to 20 minutes, not more. If you do for 5 minutes, nothing much is going to happen. If you do for about 30 minutes, you might become mentally fatigued and there's not much good progress. So about 10, 15, 20 minutes maximum is the time you should be working on these drills, and try and do them at least twice a week, if not more. You can do the swing, the ball on the string, you can do in your living room, and just a couple of minutes every day is going to create a very good muscle memory of a good drop and of good serve technique, so you don't have to be on the court all the time.